Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever really stopped to wonder why someone can climb to the absolute pinnacle of society, gather every prestigious degree out there, read all the right academic books, and yet still feel completely uncontained, scared, and just kind of empty inside? We're always taught that knowledge is power, but here's a really profound truth. The most critical knowledge you're ever going to acquire isn't hiding in a university library or a philosophical lecture. It actually comes from the raw, often deeply uncomfortable process of self-realization. If you skip this internal step, any outward success you achieve is always going to feel terrifyingly fragile.
Okay, let's dive into this. Now, obviously, academic knowledge, our understanding of society, psychology, and history is incredibly valuable. But without self-knowledge, that academic learning is, well, it's completely hollow. Self-knowledge means actually doing the hard work of confronting your own attachment styles and those lingering echoes of your childhood trauma. Without doing this deep inner work, sure, you might secure that top position, but you'll remain uncontained. You'll basically be acting out of fear rather than contentment. Your drive won't come from a place of genuine purpose. It'll just be this thrill-seeking behavior that's fueled by unhealed trauma.
Section 1. The Trap of the Unhealed.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we don't do that inner work. When you lack genuine self-awareness, you enter this really dangerous space where you kind of become easy prey for folks who are just as lost as you are. Just look at these unhealed symptoms. You start working from a place of scarcity. You feel constantly confused and directionless because, honestly, you don't actually know what you want. But most tragically, you get used. Your emotions, your time, and your vital energy are completely drained by people who have zero intention of reciprocating. And because you aren't anchored in yourself, you won't even see it happening.
Now, we human beings are incredibly clever at hiding our own pain, aren't we? I mean, we all know that one person who's quote-unquote casual exploring just leaves a massive trail of emotional destruction behind them. A lot of people disguise their profound avoidance of self-work as simply keeping things casual, or maybe they hide behind intellectual and religious labels just to justify their behavior. But fundamentally, they're just avoiding the very hard work of growing up. They're using connections and using other people for fun, all while being absolutely terrified of genuine self-discovery.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. The struggle of the aware.
So what about the people who are actually a step ahead? The ones who do know what they want. Well, they're still profoundly struggling. Even if you're totally aware, you're still susceptible to attachment traps. Almost every single one of us falls into these anxious or avoidant patterns at some point due to those unhealed childhood echoes. Until you truly internalize your own self-worth, your nervous system is still going to panic. It'll push you toward either anxious clinging or avoidant fleeing, completely regardless of what you might know academically.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer exhaustion it highlights. The aware group actually suffers immensely because they end up becoming the target for the unhealed. Just look at this quote. The aware person is completely burnt out by the cycle of performative flirting that is in reality just emotional dumping. They refuse to be someone's free therapist or a dumping ground for drama. They know they deserve better, right? Yet they just keep getting caught in the crossfire of other people's unresolved issues.
And this creates a really painful cognitive dissonance. You can be fundamentally secure in reality, but still feel completely abandoned or unchosen. You might clearly recognize that you're being disrespected, yet a little part of you still goes back, seeking that validation. It's like your intellectual awareness is completely overridden by this deep emotional need for external approval, and that just keeps you trapped in a really terrible cycle of suffering.
Which brings us to Section 3, hitting the breaking point.
So how does this endless, exhausting cycle actually stop? Well, there's a pretty painful 3-step progression to get there. Step 1, you endlessly repeat those anxious or avoidant traps. Step 2, you keep seeking external validation, desperately trying to extract worth from people who are quite literally incapable of giving it. And finally, Step 3, you hit the wall. You reach the absolute limit of your emotional endurance and you finally say, I am done. This repeated suffering isn't an accident, It's often the very thing that forces a person to finally change.
Just take a second to let the raw truth of this realization sink in. You won't actually learn until you actually go to that limit, that you're so done and you know your self-worth. It's brutal, but it's true. You'll keep repeating the exact same pattern until the pain of staying the same finally outweighs your fear of changing. Hitting that limit, that point of total exhaustion, is basically the ultimate catalyst for breaking the pattern once and for all.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4. The ultimate liberation.
So the crucial point is that reaching that breaking point paves the way for a massive energy shift. In the healed state, literally everything changes. You no longer need to rely on psychological tools, manipulative strategies, or fleeting external approval. You simply stand entirely in the truth of who you are. Because you're working from a profound place of self-knowledge rather than fear, you have perfect motivation. You don't just get what you want out of life, you actually become the kind of grounded, secure person who is capable of sustaining it. It's a total game changer.
And this right here is the ultimate truth that no academic textbook on society or psychology is ever truly going to teach you. That discovery is one only you can make. You do not need to go looking for your worth in your job title, in the validation of emotionally unavailable people, or in the degrees hanging on your wall. You only need to remember that you are the worth. It has been inside you the entire time, just waiting for you to clear away the trauma and the fear so you could finally see it.
Which leaves us with this final thought as we wrap up this explainer. I really want you to look at your own life, your own drives, and your own relationships. Are you still chasing external validation and hollow academic shields to protect yourself from your own inner landscape? Or are you ready to face the uncomfortable, glorious truth, do the inner work, and finally remember your inherent worth? The choice and the profound liberation that comes with it is entirely yours.